So thank you so much. My name is Anders Forslund, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Aerospace. And I'm going to talk today about what I think is the future of regional air travel. And first of all, I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this. Why do we need electric planes? Well, we think that the reason for doing this is that we want to overcome three major challenges that we see in regional air travel today. And the first one is profitability. And this is important because regional airlines are struggling. Last year, NextJet, the Swedish company, filed for bankruptcy. And when companies like this go bankrupt, it becomes a hard blow to the rural areas. Here's the kommunalråd from Arvidsjaur comment saying this is devastating for us. Because when there's no profitability in a regional airline, it affects the accessibility. And this is too bad because we have a great infrastructure in the Nordic countries, in Sweden, of airports that are functional, that are working, that are manned, but are not being used the way they could. This is a picture from Umeå here. And when they're used, they're used one or a couple times a day, and invariably to fly to Stockholm. So wherever you have to go in Sweden or the Nordic countries, you have to go to Stockholm. So this is also an accessibility problem in Stockholm, in Arlanda, and in Bromma, where you're standing in line with people that are just there to make a stopover. So this is a big problem. But of course, the most important problem is the climate. I think this is a really good illustration of this. This is, it's not actually an illustration, it's an observation from the NASA geostationary satellite, GS1, which tracks the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And you can actually see in real time how it's turning from blue to red. And we're seeing it in the record heats that were in Europe this year, in the forest fires, in the droughts, in the water shortages. And aviation has a part in this. It's somewhere between 2 and 3%. And it's also something that's growing exponentially as more and more people in more parts of the world want to fly more. And in Sweden in particular, flying has also become a symbol of climate change in many ways. We've invented this word flygskam, flying shame, which has now been something that we're exporting to the rest of the world. And as a consequence, it's actually the regional airlines that have been sort of punished by this. It's the regional flying that's gone down by more than 10% this year compared to the next one. So right now we're in a vicious circle where the climate concerns, which are legitimate, are reducing the profitability of the airlines, and it's those thin-haul regional routes that go first. So, but we believe there's a solution to this. If you draw a Venn diagram of this, there's something in the middle here which actually solves all of these challenges in one fell swoop, and that's going electric. So, electric aircraft are already here. This is the Pipistrel Alpha Electro. We've heard people mention it before. Avinor has one, Finavia has one. We're getting one in Sweden, and this was actually when Pipistrel visited Säve flygplats, Säve airport, where we're working, and this is actually from when I got to fly this plane. So this is an impressive plane. It can stay airborne for about an hour, cover distances of up to 180 kilometers, and it's here today, right? But people can criticize this, and they can say, you know what, this is just a hobby aircraft, a small two-seater aircraft that's almost like a sailplane. It doesn't really scale. So, but 2 days ago, Harbour Air, together with the engine manufacturer Magnix, demonstrated that this can work on a bigger scale. So they launched a 1947 DHC-2 Beaver aircraft. This is a heavy aircraft. If you compare these two, this is, this one is 600 kilograms max takeoff. This is 2.3 tons. They put a motor on this that is almost 10 times more powerful than the one on the Pipistrel. And they claim that they can fly this for 160 kilometers on a 1947 aircraft. So there should be no doubt that this is possible for regional aviation. So we started the company Heart to take this technology that we believe is in a high technology readiness level and build a certified aircraft for passenger travel. And the aircraft that we're working on is the Heart ES-19. This is how it looks. It seats 19 passengers, and it has an all-electric range of 400 kilometers. We'll show a flying prototype of this in 2022, and we'll have this certified for commercial service by 2025. So if we do the comparison to these two aircraft, the ES-19 looks something like this. And it actually has smaller engines than the Beaver. So whereas the Beaver is at about 560 kilowatts, ours max out at 400 kilowatts. So there should be no doubt that when we do this, when we build an aerodynamic frame, we can achieve this. And the exciting part about this plane is that it really changed the profitability equation for electric aviation. So we reduce fuel costs by between 50 and 90%, depending on where you're charging. In the Nordic countries, it's going to be between 75 and 90%. And more importantly, you reduce maintenance costs by 50% overall. The maintenance cost for the motor and those parts are going to be reduced by 90%. And I think it's achievable to have the equivalent cost per passengers as the traditional, like 76-seater turboprop aircraft, which are 4 times as large. From an accessibility point of view, electric aircraft offer 50% lower noise, and you can also operate them on short runway as low as 750 meters. This, in combination with this new profitability of thin-haul routes, will make these aircraft accessible. And finally, there's climate. So, ES-19 is an all-electric plane, so it has 0 operational emissions, and when we're charging it in the Nordic countries with a high degree of renewable energy, it has 0 emissions overall. Aviation has a very low footprint when it comes both to the manufacturing footprint and the infrastructural footprint. We do not need rails, we need roads. So we're confident to say that this will have the lowest carbon footprint of all farms and regional transport. And it's something that's scalable. I mean, we mentioned a lot in this thing how we look at the telecom industry, and the telecom industry is something that we started in the Nordic countries, but ultimately had its biggest impact in the developing world, where people jumped a step. They never had a regular phone, and they just jumped straight into wireless. And this could be when we're, building a regional air traffic network in other parts of the world. They can just go straight into this. Heart Aerospace is located in Säve Airport in Gothenburg, Sweden, about 5 kilometers from the Volvo headquarters. This is our hangar, and we would like to invite all of you in the network to come here, where we're going to have have a little bit of showing our electric drivetrain in May of next year. This is the Heart Aerospace team. So far we're in a very intense hiring period. We have about 500 people that applied for a job at us, and these are the 7 that we have right now. In these 7 we have experience from working on 67 different aircraft projects. I think is pretty good, especially considering that there's about 2 of them that have 90% of this experience. But we're really, really committed to learning from established aerospace projects. We don't want to be the startup that does the trial and error thing. We want to get this right from the beginning. And we want to meet our 2025 deadline. And the most important thing for doing that for a certified aircraft is to go to EASA. EASA is the European Airworthiness Agency, and that's located in Cologne. We've already applied for our DOA and passed the first checkpoint. We were there and had our first meeting in November. We had initial discussions on our TC. We passed checkpoint 0, as it's called, and we will apply formally for our TC this spring. And that sets the timer ticking. So by doing this early on, we can assure that we don't have to wait around for a few years to get this certified. And by being proactive with the certification, we do not do like other startups and realize when we invested a lot of time and money that we're doing something that doesn't fly. And I think one of the most important things for certification is to ensure all-weather operation. That this should be able to operate in the wintertime, in summertime, and in the Nordic climate. And this is really what we're here to talk about today. This is our role in the network. And for an aircraft like this, it's both to look at the things that I marked in blue here, like the wing leading edge DIs, the propeller DIs, windshield anti-ice probes and all of that to make sure that they work and that they're safe, and that you can run them on electricity, and that they're not spending too much electricity that affects your range. But obviously, it's also about building battery packs that can work in all conditions, that do not have impaired performance in low temperatures. So the battery thermal management is essential for this. And this is why we're here, and why we're in this network with airlines in all the Nordic countries, to discuss what are the operational constraints. And this, we've started the discussion yesterday, and we will keep going. We have a lot of materials on this. This is just some random pictures that I've talked to our airlines partners about, and we will get into that more today. Thank you.
Any questions? Thoughts, reflections, or something like that? Yeah?
Just a question. You said all electric, so it's not a hybrid?
No. We believe that maybe you can achieve longer range with a hybrid system, but what we really want to achieve is this economics, unit economics of running the system. And we believe it's going to be simpler to certify and build. So that's why we're betting on an all-electric system. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed yesterday, so I couldn't put some questions, but you are talking batteries. Is it the only source for the energy, or is there anything else?
We have discussions with other companies. So there's companies that are doing hydrogen fuel cells, for instance. But what's the nice thing about batteries is that it's like an automotive technology. It's cheap. You just plug it in, and anybody that has an electric car knows that the operating cost of that car is so much less. The maintenance cost is so much less, and we want to build the aircraft for that. We're not building the aircraft that you can fly, to Thailand with. This is not our mission. And I think this is something that we became really clear about, and we believe that this is not, the silver bullet for all of aviation's emissions problem. We should also focus on hydrogen, on biofuels, electrofuels. All of this should be a climate portfolio. But we see a market for an all-electric aircraft like this, and we believe that batteries will only get better. It was, on Monday or Tuesday, it was the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony when they won the chemistry prize on the lithium-ion batteries. And they asked the prize winners, what do you think? And they said, we can promise that we will have twice the energy density. Maybe we can get 5 times. But I think this is something that's coming, and it's been progressing a lot in the last 10 years, and in the coming 10 years you will see it will be a different ballgame altogether. Ultimately, we want to address all short-haul traffic. Yeah.
It's a fairly long road to get into real traffic. How do you finance this?
Okay, yeah, so that's a really good question. I actually just removed my financing slides. I can show you something here. I didn't want to talk too much about it. We started our fundraising was our first concern, so we applied for a startup accelerator called Y Combinator in Silicon Valley, which is by far, I think, the most famous startup accelerator in the world. We presented on March this year. We presented in front of 400 of the world's leading investors. We've since closed our round with investors from all over the world, California, Europe, etc. But our lead investors are EQT Ventures, one of the largest industrial funds in Northern Europe, Norrsken Foundation, which is the old Klarna founder and all of that, and 20 other investors. And we're going to go through a Series A round in the summer of next year. And we're also actually talking to the European Union about the different types of funds that are being available through the various programs that they have there as part of the Green New Deal and etc. Yeah.
What is your acquisition cost target in relation to other similar companies?
Yeah, we wouldn't go public with our price yet, but we can say that it's in a similar similar price range acquisition-wise as a similar plane. But yeah, the real saving is going to be not in purchasing the plane, but in operation as a plane. Yes.
Do you plan to build everything by yourself and design every part of it, or do you plan to maybe cooperate with some already existing manufacturer?
Yeah, as an aircraft manufacturer, an aircraft is a Lego kit. It's not something that you build from scratch. So we're talking, one of our key milestones is to identify the key suppliers. We've had dialogue with about a dozen suppliers so far. Some of them are regarding to the wing de-icing and all of these things we're talking about as well. And we want to minimize risk in this endeavor. But also in this early stages, we're also a little bit, we don't want to tire, because we see there's a lot of different manufacturers. We will hear from Rolls-Royce, who I think is an interesting manufacturer. Magnix, which showed off the plane, is another interesting. But right now we're really building our own competence to in this later stage announce what our partnership will be. Yeah.
What does the charging infrastructure look like for a plane like this?
Yeah, so our target, let me see, this is on the slide. Our target is to charge, this is say 20 to 40 minutes, but what we say is roughly for 1 hour of flight, half an hour of charging. And we believe that, even though these are 400 kilowatt motors, they're actually running on average of about 150 kilowatts during the flight. So if we go up to 250 watt charging per nacelle, that's 1 megawatt in total. That's similar as the Tesla mega charger that's being rolled out now. So this is not really a challenge as far as the infrastructure. I think it's really important that we have those discussions, and also for the next generation of planes. But the real challenge is also in the plane of maintaining low temperature in the batteries while you're running that much current into them.
Any chance that we can manufacture anything here? We don't want to just test the stuff. We would like to manufacture some parts of it.
Yeah. So we're very open to having discussions about where to manufacture all of these things, and and I think this is really interesting. And we're also obviously, when we do our first test flight in 2022, that will followed by 2 years of 3 aircraft being in the air all the time, testing from different corner cases. And if we can do some of that here at the Green Flyway, that could be a really, really good thing for us. And also leading up to that, right now we're building essentially this one here, or one of them. And this is what we're going to show this in May this year. And this, we have to start testing that. As I showed, the Harbour Air aircraft was from 1947. And our plane is modern in this design and aerodynamics, but it's ultimately an aluminum frame as well. So we don't believe that we have to prove to anybody that we can build that frame. The only thing we have to prove really is can we build a battery pack like this and a powertrain. So that's what we're going to show already this year. And that, I think, has a very good potential of being tested here in Östersund as well. Yeah.
So where do you have the batteries?
Yeah, the batteries, yeah. Here you go. So yeah, the batteries are inside of here. I can show you maybe later a little bit more of a detail aircraft. So the batteries weigh a lot, about 3 tons, but they are not, since they're very dense, they actually fit in these four pods. So the wing is entirely empty wing. The fuselage does not contain any batteries. So in the unlikely event of a battery malfunction, you won't have a toxic gas coming into the fuselage. And we can lose one of these no problem. I think we can lose more of them, but we can lose one of them in takeoff, and still that's the most critical part. So there's layers upon layers of redundancy in this design. No.
How high charging power do you need to charge it in?
We think it's going to be in the order of 1 megawatt. Yeah. And I think it's not going to be, the limiting factor here is not going to be how much power you can run to the airport. It's going to be what our batteries can maintain to maintain the battery health. And that's most related to cooling.
How much do you have at Säve right now?
How much do we have?
Yeah.
We're 7 people there.
I mean the power. I mean.
Oh, wow. We have enough. I don't have the figures, but it's, I mean, for the testings we're doing now, it's, I don't know if we have 1 megawatt there. We're right next to one of the biggest solar parks in Scandinavia as well. But yeah, but for our first test, I mean, we're not going to start by doing the megawatt charging. We're going to charge a little bit slower. Yeah.
You said the weight of the battery, but what's the similar plane? What's the weight of the fuel on a plane like that?
Oh wow! I mean, it's less. It's a lot less. So regional regional for I think we're similar in our battery mass fraction as say an Airbus A350. You know, the plane that SAS showed off on Monday. We're not the same in battery mass fraction as Dash 8 or something like that, because nobody's using those planes to fly long distances. So we basically have a long haul, like the equivalent battery mass fraction of a long haul traditional plane.
Okay. I have one question, because there are some people, of course, that are not so positive. They could be a little bit negative, you know, about the development that we have now right now. But if you look at 400k distance, what will that be in reality? If you look at the infrastructure, airports, and so on, and maybe, you know, if there is a bad weather.
Yeah. So it's been. So this is one of the things that we've discussed with the ASA a lot. Right now there's a 45-minute reserve, and we want to include that on the top of the 400 kilometers, but it's 45 minutes. So that means that we have to have batteries for 575 kilometers roughly. We're going to be loitering, and that does not include diversion to another airport. So that's more but on the other hand, this is with the batteries that we're testing today. We have, I have one in my pocket, I think, one of the batteries that we're using. And I think that, you know, the first aircraft that we will roll out in 2025, 2026 will maybe not do the 400 kilometer, maybe do the 200 or the 300. And I think that actually is one of the, we think that we have more than enough demand for these really short routes that we do not have to, that more than we can deliver in our first year of operation. Because it takes time also to scale up the production of this aircraft. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.